I'm alive. G'day, guys. Good to see yous. Yeah, sorry about the bit of a fuck up this morning. Yeah, quite scruffy. You know, I haven't even had a shower. Just basically trying to get my computer to fucking work. Anyway, shit happens. God almighty. Okay. Why not, Lukey? Richard agrees with you. Too far away. Brazil to, you know. What do you think? The postal system's that efficient between you and New Zealand? It can happen. Off to get some raw goat milk, Harry. Be back a tad later. Have fun. He likes goats in many other ways as well. While he's not here, I could actually say all sorts of things about him. Blinky's a real big goat connoisseur. He likes everything related to goats. Likes a bit of activity with goats as well, I hear. Exactly. Took us a bit longer than the 15 minutes. Probably. Hey, that was the 27th, Lambs. Don't you read the message, the recording date? It was done on the 27th. I just haven't had a chance to actually put it together because it had so many. It had 25 parts. It was segmented in 25 parts. Problem is, all that I had to actually sort out all the noise issues as well. So the background noise, I actually cut the background noise by 50%. Had I not done that, you would have probably struggled to hear what I was saying because it was that windy on the day. So yeah, so it was basically, it's a lot of editing that had to be done. And I mean, this week's been basically my holiday week. I've just chilled out from all of yous to a large extent, and YouTube in general. I mean, I've just, commented a bit or now and then on YouTube and all that, but primarily I've been sort of walking, playing computer games, and basically just sitting back, relaxing, watching the occasional movie or whatever, or meeting up with some friends, having a few drinks or talking shit, whatever, that sort of stuff. So, yes. Well, that's what I've been doing. No hiking this morning, just computer problems. Yes, at some point I need to upgrade my computer because this one is getting a bit old in the tooth, so to speak. Yeah. Good to see you, Zombie. Good to see you here. Yep, shit happens. Lamps, shit happens. Thanks. Good to see you. Harut. Hello, hello. Ah, yes. Blame his tools. Amateur hour. Hey, my life's an amateur hour. Not entirely. I do have some level of professionalism when I do go to work. It's the only reason they probably pay me. I'm a good corporate citizen. G'day, Dave. Oh, and Tracy. Good to see you here, Tracy. Yep. Gremlins, yes. Dylan, good to see you, mate. No, I'm not using, it's Windows 10. Yeah, it's So my computer isn't that old, but I've got so much fucking shit on it, you know. That's the biggest problem. I've got running all these different applications. What I do need is eventually building that gaming machine that I've got. I've actually got 2 other rigs in there, which I haven't actually. It's just hard drives all over the frigging place, and I just haven't had the time to put them together. There's one that I actually want to run as a server. It's a high-end workstation, but I haven't put that together either. It's all the parts are on the floor in a box, so that needs to be fucking sorted at some stage. So there's a lot of. It's not as if I'm out of kit, but I do want to build a new gaming machine, which I'll be basically using that as my primary rig for these sort of things as well, because my laptop's sort of, not really up to it. Foot pedal. You got some strange ideas, you guys. I haven't had router issues for ages in that regard. The only time I actually had a recent router issue is when I tried to run a service through to be able to, and it sort of didn't really work, and it sort of disconnected while the computers couldn't connect. So I go, fuck that. I got rid of it and went just back to the old setup and just used an old unit, because I've got a sort of a corporate-based printer that basically gets into the network and stuff like that, so you can actually print directly to it, like a network computer in a corporate sort of environment. But I sort of tried to run it through a sort of a server that just wouldn't actually it just fucked up the IP tables and was getting confused with the MAC addresses, which is the machine addresses, for some bloody reason. Anyway, shit happens. Different day. Yeah, what's happening with you guys? Bloody like. God, so many people watching Colourful Harry, and you're not even liking. Don't you want me to turn up? Yes, exactly. And 12 perverts perving on me without liking me. It's like going into a strip joint, not basically offering me, some, bit of dosh. That's the equivalent of the likes, apparently, according to some people. Should be kicked out of the strip joint. A lovely blue background. Hey, it was colourful. Prison calm blue. Richard, you've had a colourful young life, I suspect. No, you didn't miss anything, Blinky. You didn't miss anything. Just the rest of the banter of this and the shenanigans of this crowd. Oh, fuck you, Blinky. Extreme. 2 decades. Don't tempt me. No, not that shit. Vista was shit. Dial up. For emergencies, maybe. It'd be too easy. You still have to boot up and all that. And most of the stuff that, I have in the past actually set up Lindows, or what is it? I think that's what it's called, which is sort of a Windows sort of equivalent to Linux. And I've used that with older machines to sort of hand them out to other people that don't have computers. I do that sort of stuff. Yes, I do get access to older machines and stuff like that. Do refurbish them and sometimes give them away for free. So I did get actually one of the machines I did give ages ago to the Greek community. So, but one of them I think was thrown out anyway because it got too old. So different things like that, and other people, there's always hand-me-downs to people that can make use of them. It reduces e-waste. There's fucking too much e-waste as it is. Yeah, even by phones, I just sort of through my sort of nieces and nephews and sort of different friends and whatever, I sort of just pass them along. They might as well find another home with a younger person. They can still use it, so, And as if I care. Is that... Oh. Missed that one. Better go up here and find that one of Loki's. Stand by. Blinky's got one as well. Fucking Blinky. Do you trust him? Better check it offline. Oops. Yes, stand by. That's a good one, actually. That's actually a good one. I could actually use this on you guys for half an hour. Just put you on standby. Yes, I could be wicked. I could be absolute wicked. Yes. And fucking Blinkies, typical. Basically. Fuck you, Blinky. Back to me. See? Basically, Blinky. Yep. I think we all are. Dave. So the crowd, what games you play, Harry? Ah, yes. Exactly. One must play. Yes, the cat's away, so the mice may play. Yes. What's the deal with vegans arguing the excess carb consumption isn't bad because high carb vegans are actually reversing type 2 diabetes Randall cycle? Yes, they are, but also they're becoming deficient in nutrients and falling apart. So it doesn't really do them anything long term. Well, their diet is actually, it depends on the vegan diet. If it's a vegan diet, which is like low glycemic plants, stuff like that, it's not engaging the Randall cycle. Junk food veganism isn't going to basically, if you take a look at all the new vegans, they're all eating all this kibble, the junk food full of seed oils and sugar and all that, and engaging the Randall cycle. Have you noticed they've been putting a lot of weight on? It's basically SAD Diet 2.0, the new vegan kibble alternative to the SAD diet. That's all it is, the new stuff. But the old-fashioned sort of veganism, yes, that old-fashioned veganism did not engage the Randall cycle, and it's no different than Walter Kempner. Remember the video, the chat that I did with Pim on Walter, and regarding to, you know, the way he sort of managed it, very low protein, very low fat, 2% fat, 4% protein, and the rest carbohydrates. And these people lost a lot of weight, also corrected a lot of a number of things. Yes, it does, but it's highly deficient. Even Walter understood that. You can't stay on it forever. So veganism is like a sort of a vegan-like type has been used by a lot of religions in fasting. It's a fasting mimicking diet, really. That traditional veganism, very catabolic, and you can't do it forever, and very poor in micronutrients. So eventually you'll become micronutrient deficient, and you'll sustain excessive catabolism and damage to your organs and shrinkage of your organs. You can only do it for such a length of time. As a fasting mimicking diet, it's no different. You might as well just fast without all the shit. Because you will preserve muscle much better, and you'll also basically require less micronutrients when you fast anyway, and get the same results. So why basically go down that pathway? It's not the best way. So, and if you look at the modern type of approach with a lot of fats and sugars in, it's just another version of the SAD diet, and even worse than the standard SAD diet, because at least in the SAD diet, you're getting some animal products and some nutrition, micronutrition. So you're getting sick, but not highly deficient, where on the vegan diet, you just become deficient. And on one version, the old version, you become thinner and waste away and emaciated. And on the other one, you become a fat slob and even sicker than the other SAD dieters. So, you know, what a joke of a lifestyle. Hello, Honest. Yes, I'm a bit scruffy today. I don't think I'm that beautiful. Way too scruffy. I'll exclude myself from that comment. Just so, yep, getting there. Salad Boy had a video this week dissing coffee. Don't bother to watch it. Second largest traded commodity in the world after coffee. Okay. Feel it's bad about it before now, blah, 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 blah. Look, I have no idea what he's onto. I haven't actually checked anything this week. Actually, coffee can actually increase AMPK. So if you're doing a fasting of black coffee, can actually improve things and push up the sirtuins. It's very high in niacin as well, which is really good for the redox potential. So, and it has very little oxalate. So it's not the worst type of things, and have some polyphenols that can have some hormetic effect. As we said, let's not overdo hormesis, but you know, it's the least egregious of the plants types. And I always view plants as it also has a sort of it actually helps with also with the the hormones as well. It can actually have a slightly positive effect in sort of some of the hormonal balances and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely not negative in a big way. Coffee's not too bad in a number of ways, but at the same time, coffee raises triglycerides. Oh yeah, and unless you're on a high fat SAD diet type thing, fat and sugar combination, rand or activation, and who cares? It's when you're in a fasted way, it actually raises very little. And when you're in a low insulin to glucagon state, which is basically on a carnivore diet, you're 1.3. It basically is like a blip. So, just because he's on fucking honey and other shit and engaging the Randall cycle, and then he criticizes coffee for basically raising his triglycerides. I mean, what the fuck? How fucking stupid is that? Anyway. Yes. No. I had a router issue, Harry. Oh. Poor thing. Oh. You fucking piece of shit. StreamYard. Thank you. That's one thing, hopefully, the new company that's taken them over will basically resolve. Yes. Scored myself some free turkey eggs. Good for you, Tracy. Oil, not coffee, is the largest traded commodity. Very true, very true. Yes, exactly. Seed oil. That wonderful, wonderful elixir of death. What do you think would be the most exciting development in medicine health in the near future? More drugs. For the kibble, that's actually the bigger, the higher the consumption of the kibble. So, look, there's going to be some areas in research if we're looking at it in terms of automation in surgery. So there's robotic surgery, and some of the actual new technology that I've been looking into is actually really sort of cutting edge sort of stuff. They can actually put probes through blood vessels and remove calcification. They can basically, heal, with very like small micro tears or whatever. They can actually patch them up and stuff like that. So there's a lot of this sort of stuff that's actually gonna emerge. Probably at a good time, considering all the crap that people are reading and the damage that they're causing. But initially, it's going to be quite expensive, this technology. So I've seen actually even at London University Hospital, they've actually got some new advanced robotics for surgery and some of these techniques. I think there's Boston University Hospital as well. There's a couple around the place that are actually starting to use some of the robotics and all that. So it's really interesting. So we're going to see more AIs and robotics in terms of managing patients and detecting subtle changes and then informing staff that basically that person is going into this sort of state or cardiac arrest or whatever. So people like nurses will have nursing stations where they'll have all this feedback, and the AI will detect something before it actually sort of happens. So they'll start seeing markers change and warn the staff that something's happening here, that they need to respond much quicker. And so that will you'll get that sort of advancement in nursing type technology in sort of response time. There's the robotics of surgery. There'll be, I think those are going to be the big ones that are going to start changing. And also the other one will be a lot of the sort of you could say the allied trade type staffing, where people are doing cleaning work and stuff like that. Some of that's going to be automated. So you'll have more automation of cleaning staff duties, cooking potentially, and also there'll be stuff like the actual beds themselves will be able to basically be programmed to go from one place to another, motorized. So these are the sort of things you'll probably see within the hospital system and stuff like that. In general medicine, a lot of things aren't going to really change that big. We're on this pharmaceutical sort of treadmill, and that's just going to go on steroids and continue. So, yeah. Yes. So, interesting. Blonkers. Is that the new one for T1, our dear Blinky, he's called Blonkers. Yeah, he's a bit of a Blonky, you know. He's Blonkers, you know. God, what is he doing? Is he playing with himself? Oh, God. God, oh, God. These colourful people are honest. Yes. What can I say? Need to make one. Yes. Yes. Everybody loves their emojis. Good to see you here, Jared. Actually, I did catch up to Jared this week. We had a bit of a chat. So, yeah, he did send his regards. So, been letting down the side, you're saying? Actually, I wish we didn't have daylight savings, to be honest. I don't think it's actually. I've actually looked at research in the past about daylight savings, and people that have got like health issues and all that, the circadian changes, like in older age, there's a strong statistical observational correlation between higher mortality and that sort of change because of the circadian rhythms and sort of the adjustments to the cardiovascular circulatory system. Obviously, people have to have comorbidities, but they seem to be more vulnerable to this sort of daylight saving shift. So it's interesting research. I can't remember it because it was, God, 4-5 years ago that I looked at it. So it's a long time ago. But yes, it just came to me out of nowhere. But anyway, yes. She's good. She was basically getting on his computer, going back and forward. You know, saying, "I'm here. I'm gonna be the maester." Yes. So Butters is pretty good. Too much information, Jared. Too much information. Again. Concern. What can raises your triglycerides? Yes. Depends on what else you're eating. I don't think it actually has. It's a minor. If you're basically very ketotic or whatever, it's going to be minor. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Look, you may be an outlier. You may just have certain genetics, and for some reason, who knows with these sort of things. Yeah. There's a lot of things that can respond different ways in different people. So there are so many variations on this planet. But I've heard of it. Another friend of mine had sort of raised triglycerides from coffee. But I've actually done an experiment and it didn't actually. So it didn't affect me at all from my previous test. This was years ago. So I can only go on that. I don't know whether my genetics have changed within a couple of years. I doubt it. So maybe because I metabolize 4 times faster. Actually, that's a good point. I actually metabolize 4 times faster than other people. And a lot of people in the Mediterranean, certain areas that are big coffee consumers, we tend to over express a certain pathway, genetic pathway that basically metabolizes both alcohol and caffeine much faster. And it just could be that you have a slower, you're on the U curve. You're on the other side of the slower. I'm on the faster, and then the majority of people are in the middle on that U curve of that genetic type. So you're probably on the other end, Tracy, which basically makes you also probably more vulnerable to environmental stresses and pressures and stuff like that, because your detox capacity is probably lower. So you need to possibly focus on stuff like that. But if it raises quite a bit, you're probably not clearing it as fast. So that's a possibility. Maybe a good point. I didn't see. No question is a dumb question. All questions sometimes can lead to different things. Do turkey eggs taste different? If you haven't tried it, they taste like chicken. Harry, what is your estimate if the entire world population were on keto carnivore diet and their vitamin D levels were up to standard? What would the impact of the health industry? The health industry would probably be out of business, pretty much. And I suspect, the current virus going around would also really only affect a very tiny amount of people. Because if you got a good vitamin D status, it's not going to really affect you that severely. Let's put it that way. By keeping my vitamin D levels up through winter, usually when I get cold, a virus or whatever, nowadays, it's sort of either it's a blip or just lasts for one day and that's it. So, I mean, me and my mate recently, it sort of went from, I picked it up from somebody at work, a viral cold. That person had it for quite a few days because they were on a standard diet. I had it for probably about a day. That was it. I was fine the next day. Passed on to my mate because I accidentally had met up with him. And so he passed it on to his mum. So and it went around to a few other people. And, I mean, she's made some changes to her diet. And even though she's much older, in her 70s and all that, it only affected her much milder than many other younger people. So again, because she had a better vitamin D status, taking my advice and maintaining good vitamin D status through winter. So it would make a big difference. But unfortunately, most people out there are demonizing vitamin D and telling people that you only need this amount, which is only covers rickets, or bone health. Not even bone health, actually, just rickets. It's too low even for bone health. That's how bad the advice out there is. So yeah, they'd rather medicate you for your bones, because there's a lot of money in osteoporosis and sarcopenia and all that, rather than basically just giving you a bit more meat, some weights, and and basically getting your vitamin D and MK4 levels up to basically support all that stuff. I mean, if it can be reversed in my father within a small amount of time, from his mid-70s to his mid-80s now, he's 86 shortly, in a couple of days from now, about, 10 days, I think, your dad will be 86, and his muscles are much bigger and he's much stronger and all that than what he was a decade ago. And that's because as I journeyed and changed my lifestyle to improve my health, he did the same thing, and so turned his life around as well. So he saw me changing, and about 5 years ago, he decided he needs to make some changes as well. And I started incorporating weightlifting in his routine, and taurine, a number of these sort of things, MK4, some boron for a period of time. Now we've just at a much lower level, things like that. And a lot of things started normalizing, and yeah, he's much better now, much stronger, more vibrant. He can't believe how stronger he is physically, that he can lift things up, and as like his grip strength has gone up, like doubled, so he's stoked. He loves how he feels, and he brags to his mates and all that, and to the women in the Greek community, showing his muscles and doing all this sort of stuff. Fucking childish, isn't he? But he's had another lease on life, and so he's going, oh fuck, So yes, it would probably put a big dent into the actual health industry, definitely. It's probably one reason why they don't want some of this stuff out. How about some hardcore drugs, but have no cons? Look, it's not going to happen. The problem is with drugs is they have this on-off sort of approach, where food and other sort of like polyphenols or whatever, they have either a hermetic effect or they will modulate, like vitamin D. It modulates the immune system. It doesn't turn it off. It doesn't turn it on. It sort of modulates it. It actually regulates those sort of things. And that's what you want. You want things to work properly. You don't want things to be turned off or turned on. And that's the problem with the pharmaceutical industry. The doses are such, the therapeutic doses are such, where you've got this bang, bang, on off sort of arbitrary, or closing a whole pathway down. Those pathways have a whole lot of effects on a whole lot of other things. It's like, shutting off the production of cholesterol has an effect on coenzyme Q10 and a whole lot of other pathways below that have got biological purpose. And when you do that, you start suffering health consequences. And what they do, they say, okay, we fucked up here, so we're going to give you this medicine, that medicine to support these other pathways. And then you end up with a bag full of medicine and you feel like shit. So yeah, I don't think that they're going to ever really get. At most, what may happen is they may reduce some of the side effects, but not some of what I call the signaling problems. You still, because of the way the drugs work, you're still going to potentially create signaling problems in the body. So there's basically affecting certain pathways, but also affecting signaling. So the signaling stuff is not going to be removed, but what you may get is some less side effects in terms of pains or these sort of things, or nausea or whatever else. Because what they may do is, as the technology improves, they will refine the actual methods. That I've talked about the duality of matter. So matter has a dual nature. It's a bit like, alipoic acid. It's got the two types, So one type, the S type, basically is really the non-beneficial, and the other one, the alpha lipoic acid, is the good one. So what you can do is, by refining that method and eliminating the other part, that may become cheaper. That means that the ability to basically only produce one of the actual mirror types of, in terms of matter, which has got duality, you can eliminate the other one and keep one which has doesn't have the strong side effects. Where now you may have, let's say, even the good quality stuff, you may have about 70 or 80 or 90 of this and still have a bit of the other, which sort of creates, so you may reduce some of those type of side effects. But really, you're not going to make big headroads until we understand that we can't arbitrarily just shut down things or block things or stuff like that. We have to work with the body. And the pharmaceutical industry, the way it works, it doesn't work with the body. It works in trying to control the body. That's why it doesn't bloody work in the long run, and just creates more problems that need more medications. Yes, it's a costly spiral for the end user, so to speak, and they don't really ultimately get their health until they realize that they need to change what they're sticking in their mouth. So simple as that. Brazil government legislates that all eggs must be sold with a warning that consuming them raw is dangerous. Hence why my family is neurotic about trying to add raw eggs to my... Okay. Well, there is the issue of the egg whites. I always cook my egg whites because of basically biotin deficiency. Okay, so keep that in mind. But the yolks, yeah, you can consume them raw. I do consume raw yolks myself now and then. Okay, more sulfury. Oh, okay. I think it's been years since I ever tried it. And at the time, they were actually fried turkey eggs. That's so long a time ago. I just can't even remember the actual taste. It's so far in the past. So couldn't tell you. What about? But instead of just glucose, it detects levels of everything. Yeah. I will do a video on something on that. You've started the chocolate experiment. Oh, before I forget, my coffee. Still hasn't gone cold. And yes, it's look. I am going to do something on the monitoring of. Would I actually waste my time on a device like that? Probably not. That would be my opinion. Actually, that will be my opinion. Actually, why are you wasting your money on it? You know, I mean, if you're eating a carnivore diet or keto, doing a keto diet and all that, why do you really need to know? Is it that important for you? For what reason? I can understand somebody who's diabetic and needs to basically but why do you need a device like that? I'm perplexed. Can you tell me why? Can you put it in the comments? I'm looking now. You know, what's the reason for it? I actually, was going to do a video saying that you don't need it. If you're on a carnivore keto diet or whatever else, it's a waste of money to basically be monitoring your glucose levels because they should be fucking low unless you're dousing, you're playing around with sugar. So I still have my glucose monitor, keto monitor strips. I use them from time to time out of curiosity. Okay. Well, that's a different thing. Yeah. If you've got them because you had diabetes, like Zombie actually says, I can understand, but I can't really understand why you would bother having that sort of stuff. Yep. I said that in reply to someone asked new tech. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm with you. Yeah, that's probably going to be another thing that's going to be out there that probably with everybody in the kibble diet, they'll probably need to monitor their glucose and be horrified each time they look at it, which would probably may be a good thing, may actually get more people to think about what they're sticking in their mouth. So in that regard, maybe, but do you really need to fork out the money? Probably not. Yep. Good. There's actually a polyphenol there that helps in a number of ways. One, it helps bring down certain inflammatory things in the body, like in the lungs in particular. There's a polyphenol. I'm going to do a video on this sort of stuff. Then there's another thing also in which is like a grapefruit extract, but also that has like a dual purpose. There's, I've been talking about the niacin, nicotinic acid. Well, there's also nicotinamide, which actually goes through a salvage pathway to create NMN. And then you've got basically, so, it's one option that Jared is taking up to improve his energy. And he basically can use this type of polyphenol to help with the salvage of that pathway, because actually as you go through right through from NMN to NAD plus, you basically then create this byproduct called the nicotinamide type thing, and then there's a salvage pathway. As you get older, that loses its effectiveness. And also you've got the degradation of CD38, remember that enzyme I talked about, through that pathway. Now, this type of polyphenol can actually help actually improve that. There's another polyphenol that I haven't talked about. That's when you get older, that can actually also inhibit CD38. So in combination, the three, you can actually avoid flushing with going through the nicotinic acid pathway. There's a video that's going to be created on this. It's a future video in February that will discuss all this. But, so it's a quick option to get this in until he gets his supplement. So no, he hasn't gone back to chocolate. He's just using it as an interim option to get to support that pathway until he gets his supplement delivered. So that is really to explain exactly what we're talking about, because you guys aren't privy to the conversation. Anyway, can't be bothered to look it up. But vitamin D part of has been calculated for Europe, or rather EU. I'm not mistaken, 400 million per year. I'm not. Oh, that's some other conversation. I'm not sure. I missed part of that. More job losses in health then. Yes, definitely. More efficient. Yes, there will be, but the doctors and they will still be paid more, and the pharmaceutical reps, they'll be still getting paid more, and all that. And the technology, remember, it won't become cheaper, it'll become even more expensive. So even though you're getting rid of workers, you're adding more technology, where it'll have some benefits, but at the other end, it's probably going to have some downside as well in terms of employment and many other things, and also the type of care, the way it's done. It'll be like tiers. Like, you're wealthy, you'll be on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and you'll have different levels of technological sort of support. It doesn't mean that So it's one thing I've learned in life. A lot of these things don't necessarily end up the best ways or options. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. Yes. I was listening to an ex-mafia hitman, John Elite, stories in Brazilian prisons. Some of the world's worst prisons with 200 inmates in a room made shit all through about. In one room. Bloody hell. That's a lot of people, a lot of crowding. Yes, maybe too much over-policing of the wrong type. Sometimes certain things, there are easier ways, basically, of actually restricting people to their homes with, leg break type things, or getting them to do other social activities for minor things to pay back to the community. Locking away everyone, not necessarily always the best solution. Can be quite costly and just make them more violent and more criminalized. So that's what the research has shown anyway in the past. So That's probably some of the stuff that I find is more enlightened in some of the Scandinavian countries, and it's a reason why they have less. In Finland, they've got a really good program, and I know that the actual people reoffending actually in one part where they actually had this really good program, it actually dropped dramatically, like something like 70%. So, people can learn, treating people like animals just makes them more violent. Doesn't really help in the long run. It may make one feel happy that somebody's getting, treated badly for causing other people grief, but in the ultimate, they just become much more dangerous when they get loose back in the society. Yes. That's my 2 cents on that. Some still believe in an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and all that sort of stuff. I'm a bit more like Christ, a bit more forgiving and looking for some better options, a bit more humane options. Violence does beget more violence. Doesn't mean that people shouldn't pay for their crimes. But it also means we shouldn't dehumanize people as well. We need to properly rehabilitate and find alternative solutions for minor things rather than just locking them up and throwing away the key. That just makes them worse. Yes, that's the sort of knee-jerk reaction, but it doesn't work. And it ends up being very costly. Even in Australia, it's like $100,000 to basically house a criminal for a year. You could literally pay them, save $30,000, pay them 70 grand just to not be criminals and give them a half decent living standard. And put them on an island, go out and say, look, we'll give you 70 grand and we'll put you out here in a national park or whatever to do clean up things and all that. And we'll give you a really good salary as well so you can't live in the community, but you can basically go out there and think what you've done and all that sort of stuff. You'll end up basically a better citizen in the long run, and you'll learn some skills and probably come back and contribute. So there are better ways. I think sometimes people are just, they drop their intelligence at the door and just don't think of alternative solutions to these things. So, yes. Even in Texas, I heard recently there were some changes there to bring down the amount of people being locked away. And it actually saved the state of Texas quite a lot of money, but didn't increase the crime rate, which there are better ways. You just have to engage this. Unfortunately, a lot of the people in government and all that don't engage that because they're looking for votes, emotive, So, which doesn't help in the long run. It just costs everyone and creates more violence in the society. It spirals, so yes. Yeah, look, exactly. I know you guys up in Queensland don't, which is a good thing, actually. I think daylight savings isn't a good idea for the elderly and who especially have comorbidities and health issues and circadian sort of issues. It actually shows that the actual cardiovascular sort of incidence a month after daylight savings, they go up, and a month when it reverses the other way, when it actually goes down. It's really strange, when you look at the research. It was years ago that I actually looked at this research, but I suspect if you Google it, you'd be able to find it, but it's really bloody interesting how circadian rhythms, when you actually deliberately put them out of whack, you can induce certain conditions in older people or people with comorbidities. Very interesting. What just happened? Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, there it is. Found my spot. Oh, God. Confused the cows. Yep. Yes. Yes, we live in a crazy world. Yes. Yes, it's much easier for people to basically hate or succumb to violence because it's, you don't have to engage your brain. Okay. That's quite a bit. Yeah, so you've got very poor clearance. That's what I would say. You're just basically not, maybe you should give coffee a miss completely or go for decaf. See whether that actually improves. I know some people have switched to decaf, and it's usually the, it's the caffeine primarily, the issue. So try decaf, see how that goes. Pretty much. I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't be shedding a tear for them, you know. Good to see the back of them. Can you imagine the amount of money we would save every year? And that money could be put to great use in helping so many people and improving the society in so many ways. Far too much wastage is going into that industry. So nah, I wouldn't. It wouldn't. I'd be happy to see the back of them. Look, most of these industries would fade away if you go back when people were eating properly. The level of psychiatric issues, diabetes issues, all these, they were very minor ailments. Very small numbers of people had these problems. And the funny thing is, the majority of those people were rich. Why? Because they were eating. They could afford the refined sugar. That was very hard because in the early days, it was like the Queen of England, that rotted her teeth away. Only those people could afford that. The peasants, they were just eating basically low carb nutrition, vegetables and basically, fowl and stuff like that, very basic sort of stuff. And it was only basically seasonally that it had access to some fruit, in those days from fruit trees, actual fruit trees, So when they cut the fruit, it still had its vitamin C content when they ate it. It didn't actually lose it, by half in the first within less than a day, and then continually progressing down to where it's only sugar you're getting. So yes, substantially different if we in that regard. Yeah. Even in India, the physicians, it was only with refined sugar, after the refinement of sugar, which was in India, that it was worth its weight in gold, as they used to say. And pretty much at that time, it was the only people that basically had diabetes recorded. And then Alexander the Great went there, conquered, and, people brought the stuff back from India to Greece, and Greece started having some of these issues as well. The wealthy, obviously, because the aristocrats were the only ones that could afford it. So, yes. And physicians used to tell them, stop eating that stuff and it will go away. And it used to. So, yes. And even the Romans, I'll tell you one thing about the Romans. They used to fast people. They would throw them in a room and shut them off and fast them. And they'd noticed that once they fasted for a couple of days, their psychiatric conditions went away. Again, they were much more susceptible to the sugar than others. So yeah, there's plenty of examples in history. So yes, we'd definitely be closing up a lot of the industry once we did that. Not just the general type hospital system, but nearly every field in medicine would be affected, by 90+%. Precisely. Yes, it'd be that's why there's a sort of an incentive. What do you think the actual medical establishment pushes this sort of stuff, like the bureaucracy of medicine, like the union of the doctors, like in Australia, which is the Australian Medical Association, the AMA, And I think that it's similar in the US, American Medical Association, AMA, as well. They have the same name, just because, yeah, whatever. But it's these organizations, they push these agendas. They are political organizations. The average doctor at the bottom really doesn't know. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He basically really thinks, or she thinks, that they are doing the right thing, you know? But the people in the establishment running the bureaucracy of the medical system and all that, they know exactly what's going on, and they're in league with all. You only have to look at these people and which government organisations they are connected to, and which mates they have as politicians, and which basically industry bodies are on. You know, you just have to look at it, and all these names keep on creeping up over and over again, and you go, oh, you're in all these sort of things. You're up to your eyeballs in, basically. Yes, exactly. So, yes, these guys will fight tooth and nail to keep the current paradigm, because it's profit. It keeps them in a job. You know, their job relies on it. So it's going to be a long time to fight against, and most people out there are sheep. Most people still believe the bullshit that these people are spouting, the experts, you know, who have got vested interests. Yeah, there'll still be, yeah, that's true. The people will still be having babies, and actually they'll be more fertile. Actually, the awards for basically that purpose will go up. So yes, in that regard, yes, those sort of things. You'll still have traditional medicine in terms of, you know, surgery. People are still going to be injuring themselves, cutting themselves, you know, doing things like that, injuring where they get major lacerations or whatever. They'll still need surgical interventions. So that sort of side of medicine will still remain, but the chronic part of medicine will be the one that will die out. So, and that side of it, this side of is probably a third, probably even less than a third. 2/3 is a chronic. So you're going to definitely get up to about 2/3 to 70% of the industry wiped out. Yep. But I wouldn't say half. I'd say if you look at the entire medical system, not hospitals, hospitals are a bit different, but the entire medical system, I would say it's probably up to 70% would be wiped out. And what you'd have is more hospitals left over, specifically for surgical interventions and these sort of things, you know, dealing with, you know, pregnant women and blah, 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 that sort of stuff. Yeah, but most of the other stuff will be sort of wiped out. A lot of the actual outdoor clinics and stuff like that, you know, those sort of clinics, they'll be wiped out, because the majority of what they do is managed care for people with chronic disease. So those will be completely wiped out. Those sort of entities, most of the pharmaceutical companies will be wiped out. You'll probably end up with very few that are just providing specific products for hospitals for specific sort of acute issues, because you'll still need certain medications to stabilize people for acute conditions as they're getting some sort of surgical intervention. But that will sort of shrink probably the medical system down to about 15% or 20% of what it is, focused on that. And it will probably actually integrate and probably merge with the technology companies that are providing also the equipment. So you'll have a sort of a pharmaceutical business, it'll be a medical business which will combine both pharmaceuticals for acute care and also the equipment sort of manufacturers, because so that's the sort of consolidation will eventually happen anyway. Yes, that's it depends on which direction. I think we've still got a long way on this current treadmill until we see things really getting so bad that people start questioning much more than they are today. My mother recently had a TIA. They wanted her on statins immediately due to the high cholesterol. She said no, good for her. Yeah, but again, your mum needs to get off the sugars and other stuff like that. And I know it's hard. I know it's really hard to basically change old people's minds on these things. But you can add things in there. You can add things like, try to get things like MK4 in there, which is really important. Taurine, MK4. When people have incidents like that, the best you can do is add MK4 and taurine is the two things that I would add immediately into your mum's sort of supplemental regime. And make sure she gets checked to see where her vitamin D status is as well. So that's another important thing. Vitamin D plays a big role and is very protective for a lot of things, and most people don't realize they are deficient. It's something like, I think vitamin D deficiency is something like, up in the stratospheric levels, in the 90% in some countries. It's ridiculously high, Tracy, ridiculously high. Anyway. G'day, Shell. Do you realise, my dear, you're on dusters? I'm on them as well. I was late. I blame my computer. Okay, so she had a 0 score, which that's good. It's still, you're still going to have, you can have a CAC score of 0, but there can be other reasons for it that can actually cause it. So you can actually have weakening of the veins and arteries, and that could be a collagen issue. So you may not be getting enough MK4 and vitamin D in the diet, potentially. That plays a big role in terms of, sufficient protein for collagen. So there's a number of factors. Fat soluble vitamins are the big one in terms of collagen. The collagen degrading enzymes that I talk about, collagen regulation throughout the whole body, very important fat soluble vitamins. So look into that sort of stuff with her nutrition and supplementation, and also for fibrotic. So if she's had a TIA, and there's some fibrotic tissue that's actually being created, one great supplement is taurine, as you know. One thing, a lot of people are very deficient in taurine. It's so important, for the body. So it can improve a whole lot of things. Just keep in mind that it also has a regulatory effect, an osmotic effect on the fluids in the body, which can influence sort of electrolytes. So you bring in the dose of taurine at a low level, 1 gram, and go up to about, in her condition, 3 to 4 grams, but you go slowly up. You don't go rapidly up. So just keep that in mind, because it does have an effect. It does lower blood pressure. So if she's on blood pressure medication, you got to go very slow, and she needs to be monitored by her doctor, adjusting her meds and eventually getting her off her meds, because you don't want to go too fast, too high. So keep that in mind with taurine. Anyway, move on. My kids was a result of a car accident. One of my kids was a result of a car accident. You mean your partner came prematurely due to the car accident? What were you doing in the car, zombie? There are beds for that sort of activity. I know what you're saying. I'm just joking. You were pregnant at the time. Got to create a bit of humour. Your dirty mind went exactly where my dirty mind went. Anyway, move on. Figo HD, good to see you. We are having an entertaining day. Yes. Fucking hit that like button. You don't want to know. Ah, nice. I actually do like scrambled eggs, I have to say. Yes, yes. Mr. Mouse. Uh, yes, yes. He's on a chocolate experiment. Nah, just trying to use one of the polyphenols in the chocolate to support the NMN salvage pathway. It's not going to happen. YouTube doesn't like me. But thanks for the sentiment. Yep, we covered that. Snow. Fair enough. As I said, no question is, every question has some value. So I hope what I mentioned, all that, is of some use to you. There's probably things that I did miss, but, so be it. Small chocolate lovers here as well. It's just the polyphenols. So if you're using a supplement like nicotinamide or one of the polyphenols that also helps in, let's say you're having like asthmatic or stuff like that, there's a polyphenol in both chocolate, but also in grapefruit juice extract that has a similar effect on latrines, actually sort of down regulating them in the actual lungs and in other, primarily in the lungs. So it can be useful in that regard. But obviously chocolate, you get other, deleterious effects. It's got to be dark to have a high concentration of polyphenols, but then it's got the oxalate issue. That's why we prefer going for the extract type without any of those sort of issues. But this is sort of an interim thing for Jared until he can get his supplement delivered. But it may be an option for a child that's got asthma or bronchitis or stuff like that. Anyway, hot chocolate for the kid. And you can do the cocoa with something like stevia or stuff like that to make it palatable for a young child. Anyway, moving on. Or xylitol, which will help also with a sweet tooth child's oral issues as well. Yeah, potentially. Different people react differently to the different sugars and the different combinations. That's true. I always say, cut everything back to basics, which is basically meat, and focus on that for a while, meat, seafood, eggs, stuff like that for a while, see how you go. And then, if that works for you, fine, everybody's metabolism also not only in different times changes in the way it behaves, but also, can be affected in a number of other ways. So our bodies are strange vehicles. Our genetics are different, so we respond differently. That's why I usually say that just look at what your grandparents primarily consumed, but sometimes you may have some level of dysregulation and you need to just jettison everything, fix your body, and then you can basically are able to reconsume those items, bring them back in your diet. And I usually do say to people, to sort of minimize things like, these sort of things, coffee, dairy, these sort of things, all the sweets and stuff like that, remove them completely, chocolates and whatever else, and go to sort of a base level of seafood, meats. Sometimes even people that may have leaky gut and other issues, they may not be able to handle things like, the sort of seafood or eggs. And at that stage, I usually go to the bone broths to get some of that collagen material back in to sort of rebuild your gut. Use the B vitamins to fix up, 3 months. And I'm going to do the video. I know I haven't done it yet. That is coming. So that'll actually be a protocol to include with vitamin D and try to restore both the gut microbiome and fix up a number of these underlying issues with digestion and stuff like that. And then your body will start responding once you're getting nutrition in and it's working properly. Then things start normalizing, and once they normalize, then you can be on that sort of state for a while until you start losing some weight and start normalizing your general body, and then you'll get to where you want to be, and then you can start looking at mixing and matching and introducing some of these elements and seeing, how do I react? Should I bring them back or shouldn't I? And it's always better to bring one back, remove it, bring another back, remove it, and stuff like that, and see how you respond rather than sort of jumping in heavily into some stuff. So, and then, people have got certain genetics that they just can't cope with certain things. But again, it can be ameliorated by certain, probiotics that can actually restore a certain type of microbiome that then can allow them to function again with these sort of things. So, yes, a lot of that sort of stuff. I mean, there's critical components in terms of the gut microbiome in dealing with lactose, gluten, and all these sort of things. And a lot of people have so dysregulated due to glyphosate, due to basically too much antibiotics and stuff like that. And so it can take time to fix and restore, and then potentially reintroduce some of these sort of things back. Not all of them, because some of them are still deleterious, but you know what I mean. But occasionally you can probably cheat even with some of those things, because your gut microbiome is more than robust enough to handle it. So, yeah, anyway, but not over-cheating, as I even remind myself. Through a bit of stress in recent times. So, yep, everybody has been, and that's true. And stress can be really bad on both your gut microbiome and your general health. That's true. About fasting. That's true. Yes, stearic acid can induce, and palmitate as well, reverse electron transport in the mitochondria, and also encourage the body to biosynthesis new mitochondria, so it can have a benefit. It's that and palmitate, those two saturated fats, can have very beneficial effects, independent from all other hormetic effects and anything else you can do, can induce basically mitochondrial biogenesis. without any of the supplements, without any of the nutraceuticals out there like PQQ or other things like that, anything of that sort, it can induce it as well. So independently. So yeah, it's one reason why meat can be so good for us. Ease. Just going to say, is that you, mate? Is that you, Peppers? You don't look too bad, mate, if that's you. Let's put it that way. Sorry, I don't know whether that was supposed to be on there or not. So anyway, let's move on. I know that she'll be off to check that out immediately. Yep. Look, some people, exactly. Yeah. Some people, need to cut out dairy and coffee completely because they just basically can't manage. It's just the thing to do, so it varies. I mean, sometimes it can actually I remember when there was even me when I was actually losing weight, when I cut sugar completely out, I went for the lowest carb type of I had the best effects in terms of cheese. I was only doing camembert and brie, which are extremely low in carbohydrate, like 0.5, which is nothing. This is when I was doing that 6-month period of extreme keto, and I was just rapidly losing 15 kilos. And the thing that I actually did only include in terms of dairy was brie or camembert, nothing else. And I noticed that towards the end, when I did include some of the other cheeses, it slowed down my progress. And that's true. So I do think when you've got quite a bit of weight on, our tolerance for sugar is really low. Really low. It's really hard to budge. You really have to deplete glycogen comprehensively out of your system. And even weightlifters, even though they do so much exercise, lifting weights and all that, only when they cut can they lose the weight. When they cut completely, and at that cutting, they go extremely low carb and eliminate all sugar. So I just think that sugar in general, tends to affect a number of these anabolic pathways in such a way, in terms of the adipose tissue, that it sends signaling. So when fat does come in, I think there is a reason why you'll get more chylomicron interaction with adipose tissue when it's coming through, unless you're in this, unless your body is basically in that sort of ketotic state. So, sort of, I think it's really that activation where that low sort of state between insulin and glucagon is kept very low. And that's, you have to, I think even small amounts of sugar tend to have this spiking effect. And also the other thing that's really important to remember is that a lot of the other cheeses tend to have more of the whey component as well. So the whey component is another element, and whey can be have double the insulinogenic effect. It's short term, but still double that insulin spike compared to even glucose. So I think that's the reason for it as well. So it's the sugar component and also the whey component. And when you look at things like camembert and stuff like that, they tend to be extremely high in casein, next to no whey whatsoever. So, and also very high in fat. So they don't have as much protein anyway. So they tend to be very ketotic in that sort of nature, these sort of cheeses, in particular brie. And I think that's the reason why it's the best. I think it's the best. Those two in particular, brie is the best sort of ketogenic cheese out there that I can think of, because I was still losing rapid weight even when I was consuming those sort of cheeses. Any other cheese, and I saw a reduction in progress. So I think there is something to do with the whey component and the sugar component. So I think that's where the play is, and as long as we are in this sort of state where we're stoking those pathways, it's really hard to really sort of get the whole mechanism of sort of releasing sufficient free fatty acid and getting fats out to be oxidized. That sort of condition doesn't really manifest itself very easily. It's sort of, you sort of have to get to a certain state in either direction to sort of get that sort of activation happening. And I think that's what's happening. And it varies between people. I'm not saying everybody's the same, but I think that there is some fundamental truth there in that regard from what I've seen. So, yeah. Yeah, that can do it as well. What do you need folate for beyond methylation? There's a lot of functions that folate plays in the body. Yeah. I mean, it actually has a modulating effect with the gut microbiome. So by providing the gut a number of the bacteria in the gut with folate, it can actually be very helpful. Also, they can produce some of it as well. Methylation is probably the big one, but it has a number of other biological functions in the liver, in its function. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember everything. So, but it is a video that I do want to make. Has effects in the brain, in the heart, together with B12 as well. So there's a lot of different pathways. So yes, probably should make a video of the B vitamins. I mean, the B vitamins also, remember I was talking about how they, through this back part of the brain also, there are receptors that use a lot of the B vitamins, and they control a lot of the actual, you could say, the primitive brain, or the reptilian brain, that's the word. So there are receptors there that actually do a lot of functions. There's other functions that we don't really understand very well. So, I mean, most people just focus on the methylation side of things, detoxing and dealing with homocysteine, but there are other purposes out there as well. That's for a future video, that the one that I've promised but I still haven't made yet. So, which will look at all these sort of things, how they have effects in different biological tissue. So you will just have to wait for that full amount. I just gave you a general. Folate is used in every single tissue in the body. Every single B vitamin, every single fat soluble vitamin is used in every part of the tissue in the body. So, and not only in our body, but also in the bodies of bacteria and other organisms in our body. So, all these are necessary. The B vitamins, I mean, Yeah. So they're all necessary. But that would be, yeah, I'd say a long conversation to go through every single pathway and explain it properly. I'd do it a disservice at this stage because I'm just giving it a general overview. That's a really long question. Basically, that's what I should have said from the beginning. It's a very, very long answer to be. Yeah. So wait and see. And the other thing is, I don't want to give too much away to my opposition who may be watching my streams now and then, which is another thing. They can fucking wait as well. Yeah. So, because I look at, I'll tell you one thing. Why I don't like actually giving, unless I'm actually doing a video or I've done a video, I will give you a general thing, and I'll tell you why. Because I like to basically do my own research and work and find these esoteric things. I mean, everybody talks about methylation and stuff like that, but I like esoteric. It's like, for instance, in North America, most of the guys, I'll tell you, most of the guys on YouTube, what they do is they look at the general media, and new studies come out, which is an epidemiological crap study. And everybody, if you've noticed, everybody on the YouTube, bar me, I don't do that, but everybody else on the YouTube has popped up the study and talking about it. They're either on the low carb side or keto or carnivore or whatever, and arguing against it, why it's bullshit. And then the other crew on the other side, the plant-based and all these sort of kibble-based community, they're basically arguing for it. And they're arguing between themselves. The reality is it's crap. It's all observational nonsense, questionnaires and crap like that. I usually say to myself, because for a while there, Bart does a lot of this, because he already does that, and I said, why bother doing it myself? I couldn't find a reason. I said, does it really help anyone in any way in their health? No. So why am I doing it? And because I started literally edging towards that, and then I realized that's just shit. Why am I wasting my time with shit? Because that's what this research is. It maintains academic tenure and allows institutions to say, oh, our institution, our School of Medicine, produced so many hundreds of research studies this year, which are all this questionnaire garbage, epidemiological nonsense, which, can't prove anything. So basically, that's what they just regurgitate out and maintain good tenure, get well paid and all this sort of stuff, keep the pharmaceutical industry happy and all that. Where I go is to other places, like the recent one that I did for the vegans, that's in places like, and that could be even useful even for people who are sad dieters, not only for the vegans. But when you look at that sort of stuff, you go, that's in a place like the Gaza Strip. There's a lot of poverty there. These people have to come up with solutions that normally you just basically wouldn't have. So if you think about it, you have to come up with a solution outside the box. That's the research I look. Middle East, Iran. You've seen some stuff that I showed on Iran with testosterone. The sort of stuff up in, or have I? Maybe I haven't yet. Anyway, or some of the stuff from Northeast Asia, which I've done, and even the EMF stuff that I did with Bart, if you remember, the 5G stuff. I did that sort of stuff about heat shock proteins and shit like that, which is oxidative stress, basically. That's what it means. And that's and these sort of things. And I don't find that in Australasia. I don't find that in places like North America. And so I have to go to these parts of the world where they're not driven by the dollar, and they have to come up with solutions for their poor communities. And that's where some of the little pearls of wisdom come from. And that's what I research, so, and that information really helps because people can say, well, I can action that. I don't need to go through a doctor. I don't need to go through a pharmaceutical company, but I can actually improve my iron status, even as a woman, I can actually improve by basically adding a bit of taurine into my diet. There you go. So it has applicability to both poor and certain people that don't want to go through the system to be drugged until they die. So that's my sort of focus. And, I'm willing to go away and look for that stuff. You're not going to find anywhere else. On YouTube, they're selling product, or they're looking at the latest study says this. That's all they're looking at. And I'm not looking at the latest study says this or at selling a product to you guys. I'm only interested in basically finding esoteric stuff out there, solutions and pathways in biology that can basically help you guys. That's all I'm interested in. So yeah, I know other people have said that certain people have been on my channel monitoring me and all that. So because people know some of their other non-standard fake YouTube accounts. So, why give them the information? Let them fucking go and do their own research is what I say. But at the same time, and that's why, if you come, I know some people have actually asked me, oh, how do you get this stuff, Harry? None of your business. Go and do your own research. So, because nobody else out there is doing me any favors, I can tell you. I'm trying to cruise through. Great point about prisons, Harry. Yep. Yes. We waste far too much money on destroying people's lives and achieve very little for it. And most of the actual prisons, especially in the US, God, they're all private. It's a profit thing. They want more people criminalized so they can actually... for fuck's sake. StreamYard just overshot and I've lost where I was. Can I still see that on the other one? Let me just see. What do you think about people saying we need supplements often due to soil depletion? If you're eating animal products, they will have a level of concentration, especially if they're pastured. Now, there is some truth that even pastured soils that are still being rebuilt probably may not be as... But remember, we're on a carnivore diet. We're not eating carbs. So our requirement in terms of the RDIs are much lower. So as long as you're basically getting, I usually say, from animal foods, you're getting double the RDI or double the excretion rate, which is what I'm getting by just eating animal foods. Even if they have half that amount, even if they've got half that amount of the animal in terms of magnesium, I'm still going to get the excretion rate. So I'm going to be fine. Yeah. So basically I don't get too wound up about it unless you're eating a kibble diet or some other stuff, really. I mean, it's probably not the big thing. There's a couple that got lost there. There's the selenium one is not mentioned in New Zealand. Yep, exactly. And selenium needs to be balanced with iodine for the thyroid to function properly. So too much of either one can sometimes put things out of whack. So you may be eating, let's say, a lot of selenium foods, Richard, and as a consequence, by consuming a lot of selenium in your diet, but you're drinking tap water, which is sort of depleting your iodine because of the fluoride or overtaxing your iodine. So could create an imbalance potentially. So keep that in mind for anyone. The other thing is, sort of to consider all that sort of stuff. Mag needed, save your money. Yep, no mag. Yep, exactly. Thanks, Cheryl. What do you go to improve deep sleep? Pretty much, Tracy, don't stay up late. Most people should be getting to bed, and I should know as well because I don't do it necessarily. I was up late last night. I was, I looked at the time and it was 2:00. That's way too late, so I'm not doing myself, and because I've been on holidays, I've been abusing myself in that regard, which isn't a good thing. So once I get back to work, I'll be back to normal, going to bed around 10:30. And that's really when you want to do, because the period between 10:30 and 2 is some of the most best healing sleep that you can actually get. So that's our problem. And I actually, because we've gone 1 hour forward, when I look at the time, I go, oh, okay, it's 11 o'clock now. That means it's 10 o'clock. So in daylight savings. So if you're in daylight savings, 11 o'clock is your 10 o'clock, the real 10 o'clock. So you go at 11 with daylight savings. If it's not daylight savings, you go at 10. And 10 is the best time to go to bed, really, if you really want. And blue light, dealing with blue light and stuff like that will improve your melatonin levels. Also vitamin D, getting out in the sun and the infrared and all that, the modulation of the sun will actually tell your body how to basically work out your circadian rhythm properly. So it's all that sort of stuff, which is really important. Yep. And seems to eat more salt, fixes most electrolyte. Exactly. Yep. Most people notice when they've got cramps, they take magnesium, and it's not fixing the problem. And all the problem is when you take too much magnesium, you start urinating out even more because it's too much, and the body can't handle it, so it starts getting rid of it. And when you do that, you start losing also sodium, and then you're making this problem even worse. So I know people have been taking magnesium. Oh, but and remember, when you don't like when you do Epsom salt bath, you're not actually absorbing magnesium into your body. You're absorbing it to the actual skin and all. And what it does is it has a relaxing effect on the biggest organ of your body, which is your skin. But it doesn't really affect your internal status. That is from food that affects that internal status. And all you need to do is cover the excretion rate, because you don't actually sweat out potassium or magnesium. You lose it through urination if you've created imbalances to your electrolytes. So you want to keep it in. You want sodium. When you go to a hospital, what do? They rehydrate you with sodium chloride water, okay, with salt water. So they don't do it for a joke. They know what they're doing. So, why aren't you maintaining a good level of, sodium chloride in your diet? Salt. So that's really what will make sure that things work properly. And also will put less strain on your body, because basically the renin-angiotensin system doesn't need to be activated. The whole reason why cortisol gets activated is basically because you don't have enough salt. You have to engage that to push up the blood pressure to hold in the fluids, so you don't have fluid loss and a loss in blood pressure. And then you're throwing in there, you're doing that, you're pushing that pathway with low sodium, and then you push in insulin because of the sugar, which pushes up basically, and that extra sugar pushes up basically insulin, which has a water retentive effect, and that's why you get high blood pressure, So low sodium, and that's why in the past when people had high sodium and moderate sugar, they weren't getting any blood pressure in the 50s and 60s and all that. Anyway, yes. And then we had refrigeration, and then we had stupid doctors telling us that basically we should eliminate sodium and we should eliminate fat, and basically became very water retentive, and blood pressure kept on rising. So what did they do? They gave us diuretics. Let's get rid of the water through diuretics. Let's actually make you even more depleted in electrolytes. Fucking hell. What a wonderful world we live in. Yes, they're not on until the evenings. Very important to Yep. Yep, salt is the cure, exactly. So, and taurine also helps with better regulating the actual fluids within your body and electrolytes as a consequence. And that's another thing, that as we get older, we have poorer regulation again, not only for the food and all that, because of biosynthesis of taurine comes down. And we do notice these sort of issues much more pronounced in older people. You get taurine in there and their blood pressure and, starts normalizing. I saw that with my father. So yes, very important. And again, older people, again, are not eating enough meat, so they're not getting enough taurine naturally in the diet. So yes, got to do that video on taurine and fluid management in the body. But anyway, that's for another day. Yep, we covered that. Yep, we covered that. Let's make cake. That's vicious of you. That's hate speech. Spray lube. Yep, exactly. Well said. Yes, sometimes people forget those important things. Hello, fatty friends. You're an animal. You're an animal. Hey, some people like to lube themselves. What's wrong with that? Oops. Oh, what the? Misheading. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. There's curfew in Quebec. We can't exit our homes after to 5 p.m., just like in Nazi Germany. Well, it was 6 a.m. for them. Oh, God. Yeah, I know. We live in a fucking crazy world. Lockups and lockdowns and yeah. Luckily in Tasmania, it hasn't been too bad at all, but I know my sister on the mainland in Melbourne, my older sister, she's gone through a number of lockdowns in in Victoria, but not as severe as that. Sort of where people can still go out if they're going to do essential stuff, but actual curfew, that's next level. That's not lockdown, because curfew is not the same thing. Like in Australia, where there was a lockdown, but you could still go to get, emergency things like food or whatever, stuff like that, one person within the family in mask or whatever. But actual curfew means you cannot exit your home after those hours. That's like wartime sort of controls. Fuck me. That is bad. God almighty. These are the things that worry me, Bart and many others, about, the sort of our civil liberties being extremely eroded by using, we're protecting you, so we're locking you up. Exactly. It is. It is. So that's Lukey's routine. For anybody that wants to know. Yes. He's an advanced boy. He's got his head screwed on correctly at his young age. I wish I had mine at that young age. All that I could do is look up skirts. That was my focus, and that was my level of focus in life. Why not? Why not? Enjoy. Yep, exactly. Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Look, I don't know what they're actually consuming in terms of fat-soluble vitamins. You've got to be very careful with supplemental fat-soluble vitamins. The ones that I find actually the sort of safer ones, relatively, sort of, when it comes to retinol, it's, better to get it from the food. I really struggle to find anything decent in supplemental form. So butter is a good source, as you know, that sort of stuff. But with MK4, with vitamin D, it's always the MK4. Most of the MK4 actually comes in a sort of a powdery form, and it's only MK4 with no. So you have to combine it with food, obviously, because you need the fats in there to basically absorb the MK4. The vitamin Ds come in all sorts of variations. Just have to remember, avoid seed oils. And if it's in a pill type thing, then it may need basically to be had with food. Again, so you don't disturb the circadians. Tell them the vitamin D should only be taken at 11 a.m. That's basically, and no later than 3 p.m. So it's really in that period of maximum UV is when you should be taking your vitamin D supplement, not outside that. Just so we cover that quite clearly. Well, I usually say that you should get it from the diet, and it will vary from depending on your age. At my age bracket, as a more senior person, I would say I have noticed that actually StreamYard is basically, and I've got a fast connection, so I know that I can download things quite fast and all that, and I don't have anything actually running in the background, so I have no friggin' idea why this is slowing down in the way it is. So I did notice actually there are 3 new icons. They've actually they've been bought out by what's the other company called? God almighty, my brain. Let me just look that up. Can't fucking remember. Where is it? Hopin, that's it. They acquired them for 250 million. So since Hopin have acquired them, I notice that I'm getting 3 different icons in my system tray as sharing control panels and stuff like that. So I haven't seen that before because it was integrated directly into not here. So I don't know whether that's affecting the sort of like, I've noticed it freezing a bit because I got notification again. It's done again. I got notification this week that Hopin basically had acquired them. Now Hopin actually uses what they call like an event manager type system. So they set up many events with a whole lot of people being able to participate. And it's going to be useful because you can actually like have like a group of people and you can sell tickets. So if you want to basically do like an event in that regard, so it's going to be good for YouTubers that want to monetize and stuff like that. But for YouTubers like myself, it's probably going to be less important. So I've sent the information to Bart. He's just some background information about it. But in terms of they're trying to integrate both platforms. And I don't know whether they've already started, but, you know, I have noticed today quite a bit of like jerkiness, or I don't know whether that's something to do with these new types of different control settings that have been popped in here. And I actually click on them and all they tell me, control sharing from StreamYard, control sharing from StreamYard. And that's all the things. And I don't want to really open it just in case it actually fucks up everything because my machine's a bit on the iffy side at the moment. So I'll leave it right at the end. I'll give it a try. Then if it falls apart, I don't give a shit. So, yeah, I just got to be a bit careful in that regard. But usually my supplemental are things like creatine. So creatine. The other one is taurine. The other one is choline, which I occasionally, let's say I don't have enough eggs or liver, I may have choline. So that's not really a constant one. The other one is L-citrulline. So L-citrulline, which is the 4th one, which is so, and then the seasonal one, which I've recently, which normally I don't, has been vitamin D, but now I'm not using vitamin D because it's summer in the southern hemisphere. So I'm just going out and getting, as you can see, trying to get a bit of a tan or whatever. So that's only a wintry thing primarily if I'm not going to Asia. Currently, with the current airline sort of situation, that's not happening. We'll see what happens by mid-year. And the other one is MK4. So that's basically all my supplementals are, which is what I take. The rest I get from food. And they have specific purposes. The MK4, obviously, for my cardiovascular clearing up, which is still an ongoing sort of situation. I used to take vitamin E as sort of for a number of years. Sort of I've dropped using vitamin E anymore. I get it from the diet. It was primarily, the low dose Jarrow one for the PUFA that I'd consumed in the past. Now I avoid PUFA like the plague. Anything that's seed oil that, it just doesn't go into my body. Simple as that. I abstain. I sometimes go out and I'll abstain from those sort of things and I'll just have a drink and that'll be it. There may be some brie there or some sort of processed meat of some sort that doesn't have any seed oils in it, like salami or stuff like that, and I'll have that, and that'll be it. So where other people will be eating all the other kibble shit or whatever, which I used to as well in the past. And so I don't have to worry about the vitamin E anymore. But generally speaking, if you're talking about the average person that's actually eating shit out there, yeah, they probably need MK4. They probably need things like a low-dose vitamin E. They probably need alpha lipoic acid, because they're probably so deficient in sort of sufficient antioxidant capability, because they're sort of eating kibble, so they've down-regulated glutathione. Without glutathione, sufficient glutathione levels, which only you can get it in a low carbohydrate state, you can't refresh vitamin E and vitamin C, and a number of and also things like CoQ10 and stuff like that. So the advantage of throwing in lipoic acid is because it's a mega electron donor, so it can actually refresh all these other antioxidant systems, including glutathione. So that's usually what I would recommend to people, that the low dose vitamin E, if they're still eating shit, astaxanthin, alpha lipoic acid definitely, vitamin D, and MK4. So that would be my 5 for the average person out there that's eating shit. And if they're older in age, I would throw in there things like L-citrulline, choline, and basically taurine. Basically, those would be the 3 aminos that I would throw in there as well, beyond just the supplements. So that's basically what I do for people that are really, and that's just, it's not a cure. It's not, but it will basically slow down the damage, basically, so for the average person. Anyway, blood pressure is high. Nailed it. Yes, obese. Yes, that doesn't help. And electrolyte management. Also, taurine can help. If you're not on taurine, you should be. Why aren't you? And fucking hell, it's still doing this. It's driving me crazy. So yeah, and I can tell you, if you're dosing up things like taurine, you will definitely bring down your blood pressure, I can tell you. So naturally. Anyway, well, yes, I do need to laugh now and then. Sure. Yep, more chats about the exercise routine. No comment. Move on. These ladies, I call it entrapment. Scurrilous women. Sam, how are you, mate? How would one obliterate kidney stones? Citric acid, mate. Citric acid. Use a bit of citric acid. Either getting either lemon juice as a short-term thing. Apple cider vinegar can help as well, but actually one friend of mine said the best way to actually consume apple cider vinegar is through a straw, so you don't get it on your enamel to damage your enamel. Lemon juice isn't as bad, but still probably better to use a straw. I know it sounds strange, but you're actually getting beyond the teeth. And I usually, if I've used lemon juice, I also make sure that I'm basically then gargling some salt water just to reduce the acidity in my mouth. So another thing. But yeah, those sort of things can help break down stones. apple cider vinegar on an empty stomach. I've done it. Lemon juice, get all that citrate there. Put lemon juice on your food, and those are the quick options. Those are your quick options until you can basically get some, food grade citric acid. So you can put it in a glass of water, mix it up and drink it. That's what I've used, and that's what Bart has used in the past for that purpose. And I haven't had any kidney stones since. And yes, and Dad he doesn't want to do I said, do you want citric acid? And he said, no, I don't want. He said, you got me on enough stuff. I don't want any more. So he's gone for the lemon juice option. So that is what he uses as an old fella. So it works for him, and he hasn't had any kidney stone issues since, even though he does still eat some green vegetables. And that's primarily what was causing most of his kidney stones in the last couple of years. So what can you do? Yes. He has cut down on a lot of that sort of shit as well. So he does focus more on meats nowadays, which is good. But, he still has his own veggie garden. He still grows some of that stuff, Can't change him. Occasionally he has a very carnivorous day. I turn up and he's only got meat, no vegetables whatsoever. And I go, oh, that's interesting. He said, I could be bothered. I go, oh, okay. Good to see. So it varies. It's true. Whatever you like. Where is he here? Lukey and his limes. Ah, fuck. Do not do that to me again. Ah, what the hell is it doing now? Ah, fuck's sake, YouTube and yes, shit. Doesn't anything want to work today? Oh, God. You guys are still talking amongst yourselves. Good to see. Hold on a sec. Back day, just feel sick, man. Okay, more about the exercising. Ah, Mr. Olympia. Yes, maybe in a few years. You never know. We'll be cheering him on. Meat, seafood, and eggs are my world right now. No more added fat. No, you don't need to. I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got a bit of body fat on there, you don't really need extra fat. I don't know why people are doing fat bombs and stuff like that. As long as you're getting eggs in there, so you're getting some cholesterol, you're getting fat, you're getting some seafood and getting some meats and some of the fats from the meats, you're still going to basically have your gallbladder release bile and stuff like that and functional. It's only when you go very low fat, which is the problem. So as long as you've got that, you'll still have a functional gallbladder, which is important. But ultimately, you do want to halve so if you're saying, I'm getting my 20% protein in, and I usually say to people, if you're a woman, usually say 25, but if you're trying to lose weight, go back to 20 or even 15. Why? And halve the actual fat requirement, because you want the rest to come from your body in a ketotic state. That's how you lose weight. You put yourself by pushing up the actual nutrients to push up the metabolic rate, and then basically you cut off, and then the body starts taking more and more as you get into a state of ketosis, more and more out of your own body. And remember, as you're losing tissue, you will use that protein from the tissue. So as you're cleaning out the gunk out of your cells, and all these cells are starting to not be recycled, you need less protein, because basically your body will use that material to rebuild new tissue and stuff like that, and renew and stuff like that, create enzymes and whatever else. So your protein comes down when you're losing weight, and so does your fat requirement because you're getting it from your body. So yeah, you don't need to. It's only when you're building up, bulking up as a bodybuilder and all that. And sometimes, I say to people, stop trying to basically be Sean Baker unless you can actually do the work. That means lift the actual weights that actually Sean lifts. You're eating too much. Even Sean realized that when he was having too much protein, cut back on his protein, and he was able to basically, lean out. So, there is a requirement, but beyond a certain physiological level, and depending on your physical activity, there are reasons why bodybuilders use all those proteins and protein shake, all that, because they are bulking up and doing a lot of pumping of iron. If you're not bulking up, why are you eating so much protein and putting so much energy in your system when you've got so much on board? The whole purpose was our ancestors knew that when things were lean and they couldn't find a lot of animals, their body was eating the resources that they had already accumulated on their body. That's the whole reason for it. Otherwise, why have basically adipose tissue in the first place? It gave us an advantage over the chimps that didn't have it, and so were restricted in their capacity to hunt. Persistent hunting they couldn't do. And the other thing is, even though they're trying now with small game in the savannas with going after small things that can't run fast away, so because they just don't have, they're very glycolytic, they don't have the fat stores to basically support this capacity. But yes, but they are going for fattier stuff. It'll be interesting to see in the couple of generations what will happen to their adipose tissue storage. I suspect it'll go up because of this change. So could we have the Planet of the Apes? Unlikely, especially in our lifetime anyway. Anyway, from these savanna chimps, the new threat to humanity. Anyway, let's move on. I talk too much shit sometimes. Hey, I'm trying to do that as well, mate. I've actually cut back on my niacin deliberately. I haven't actually had niacin now for about a month or whatever. I'm trying to because it does too much healing to my skin and actually prevents me from basically getting a tan. It's so yeah. There you go. All the Asians now know that basically they need to use more niacin. Let's move on. Yes. Yes, a lot of people do. And remember, also Fecky, the doctor in Tasmania, he's cut a lot of legs off. It's a reason why Dr. Fecky basically realized that, that there was something wrong with this world, that he was basically more and more every year was cutting more limbs. It's just, what the fuck? Yes. That's why he had to go a deep dive into nutrition and get himself into trouble for it while he was trying to help people. He was one of those doctors that basically believed in the Hippocratic Oath. Yes. Any remedies to fix dairy problems that cause acne, dairy consumption, risks my skin and breakouts, only tolerate very small amounts, or should I just eliminate it altogether? It depends on what sensitivities you've got and all that. There is a video coming which will cover the dairy side of things and some of the gut microbiome stuff. You will have to wait, unfortunately. Yes, can't give away too much at this stage. And it also helps with a number of other things, even gluten and stuff like that. So, yeah. it will be interesting. Not that I'm encouraging that sort of eating, but you know what I mean. Yes, those little bugs can be very helpful. Anyway, well, we don't mind flattering you, mate, at all, Lukey. You do so much for us. My godfather suffered 7 strokes and double leg amputations. That's what killed him in the end. Yes. Look, yes, gangrene is a big problem with basically people who have diabetes. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes people say, how can you allow it to get that far? Well, if you keep on going to your doctor and telling you you're not doing it right, and you're doing it right, and you're trying harder and making it worse, I mean, who's at fault? You? Not even your doctor, because most of the doctors are completely ignorant about the facts. They have no idea what they're talking about because they've got zero knowledge in nutrition. And the nutritionists are all basically run by the food industry, so there's no hope with that crowd. Yes. You did it wrong. You did it wrong. I'm going to get Sky onto you. You need to get your vitamins like Richard through poo. Or send them to Goji Man. He does actually, he's a connoisseur in new carny shit for his clients. Yes, he's providing them with new nutritional supplementation. Yes. You're eating a species inappropriate diet, my boy. Oh God, flippers cannot be unseen. Richard, that's all I can say. Oops. Shit. Sure enjoyed it. I lost both my parents to cancer. Well, not to cancer. To chemo, radiation, and medicines. They died in 2010, 2018 flu season, just like the COVID victims these days. Yes, it's unfortunate that, people that have got so much damage or comorbidities are so vulnerable to the current virus. Yes. But, unfortunately, like the rest of us, it took us a long time. We've all got damage. I mean, I've still got, up until a decade ago, I was basically guzzling down shitloads of seed oil, shitloads of sugar and all sorts of crap. So I did plenty of damage. And it was only in the last, you could say, 6 years that I've sort of had enough information to start getting away from all that sort of stuff. In the first few years, I was still doing some damage and still, trying to do some things that my father was doing and, correct things. But as I got more knowledge, I realized, these things are bad. So, one day I walked into, this was about 7 years ago in my place, and basically looked at all the seed oils and basically just threw them in the rubbish bin. That was it, and realized, oops. And then over time, a bit later than that, a couple of months after that, I realized all these foods shouldn't be in here. So a lot of the carbs and stuff like that ended up in the bin as well. So yes, it took me a while, because even though I did the sort of high-fat Mediterranean, I still had carbohydrate component in after I came out of the hospital. And then it took me a while to sort of get rid of this. Even when I played around for a while with paleo, then I got sick of it because of the lack of dairy. I sort of went back to dairy, and then from that I sort of went back to some other carbohydrates as well. and then realized it wasn't really working for me, and then I had to try. Then I sort of slipped into the low carb community. Initially, I was lukewarm about it, and then it took me some time to basically accept a lot of what they were saying, because I'm a sort of person that I do have an empiricist mind. So, you got to convince me. I have to do my own research and be sure that I'm not being sold some bullshit. So it took me a while to do my own research to realize these people are actually got some really good things to say, valid things. Yes. So, hello, Necro Kitty. Good to see you here. Talk about Necro Kitty. I actually ordered myself more of the Ruteri stuff, but I also got the stuff for for your teeth. I'm going to give that a try. I haven't received it yet, so it's going to be interesting to see, that side of the oral microbiome side of things as well. So stay tuned. Funny how you mentioned coffee several times each stream. Yeah, I did forget my coffee, didn't I? I did add a bit of extra niacin and some polyphenols. Thank you for reminding me, Lukey. Yep, he died many years ago. He was hateful, but he loved me. Diabetes back then, they didn't have any good treatments. It got to his brain. Yeah, look, that's, a lot of people years ago. I mean, it's only been really in the last, you could say, 20 years since that really we've actually the last 15 years. The last 15 years, because remember, a lot of there were no low carb studies before 15 years that were out there, big stuff, real stuff. There are little pilot things here or there, but nothing really. The only stuff that existed before that was the Ornish studies, which were shit. The Epstein studies, which were also shit. We had nothing. A lot of these people criticized Atkins and said, why don't you do studies? And Atkins said, well, it costs a lot of money to do studies, and it should be the government that does these studies. That's why we pay our taxes that look into to what is best, or to, I'm not a researcher, I'm a doctor, as he pointed out, and, he worked on anecdotal improving his patients. But it wasn't until sort of the mid or 2003 to 2007, where we started seeing the emergence of some research in that area. I mean, we had the direct study out of Israel, which is a big randomized control study, which included the Atkins, the high-fat Mediterranean, and the Learn diet, or the official dietary blah, 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 low-fat diet. And we know what happened with that. Atkins first, high-fat Mediterranean second, and the nutritionist, the experts diet last. They seem to forget that. And then the other one was out of Stanford University with that vegetarded academic who did garlic studies, the vegetarian vegan / Christopher Gartner, and he did the A to Z study. And basically, again, it was Ornish, Atkins, zone diet, which was very popular in the past, not so much now, and also the Learn diet of the the nutritional sort of world. What did we see? We saw the zone, Ornish, and the nutritional diet do about the same. Now, the funny thing is, those diets, both the nutritional one and the Ornish diet, tend to be more lower in fat, which tend to not engage the Randall cycle. and they were just doing as good as a mixed diet, like the zone diet, which was a sort of a low carb mixed macro type diet. So they did not do any better than something which had some level of Randall cycle activation potential compared to their diets. So it just shows that even when you're not engaging the Randall cycle, you're not getting much better than even a cleaner mixed diet with these fucking diets. So they're nothing to run home to mum to brag about in that regard. But the Atkins diet was superior. It basically the actual the curve after 6 months was dramatic. All the other ones were up here, and Atkins was all the way down here in terms of weight loss, in terms of a whole lot of biomarkers. It was only towards the end of the year when people sort of fell off the wagon and they weren't as compliant that basically things came together, but never completely. Atkins was still better after 12 months, but it wasn't that was more due to compliance rather than basically the best thing is to look at the 6 months where people were complying much more rigidly and the differences were stark. And that's the only research we had back then that basically then enlightened us to realize, oh shit, there is another story here. And that's the sort of stuff that I came across. These sort of studies, and that's really what turned it around for me. For this first time, I had the confidence to basically believe in the low carb diet at that point because I had research behind me, and I'm very research orientated, as you guys know. So when I saw that, I was convinced. That's when it was a paradigm shift in my head. Randomized control studies showing clear, reductions in C-reactive protein, all these sort of I went through all the research and even some of the actual stuff that wasn't in the original research that they had to go to the Stanford University site to find it. But I can tell you that once I found this information on blog sites or Reddit sites on all sorts of places, I started then convincing myself that basically I've got real randomized control, real experimental research here that I can base my belief system on. And that's what was, for me, the paradigm shift. So, yes, isn't it funny? An Israeli study and a veg-tarded academic basically convinced me that Atkins is better and low carb is better. But that's what actually happened. Most people just jump on anecdotes. I really wanted the research. It's the reason why I was bullshitted in the first place with the old bad research about vegetable oils and all that, and why I went down that path religiously, because for me, the research, but I didn't realize, I never looked at that research. I just accepted it as a youngster. Bad thing to do. When the second time around, I actually looked at the research. I just didn't take it hook, line, and sinker. And that's why I am where I am now here in this regard. Yes. Dairy production has a considerable effect on climate change due to emissions of greenhouse gases such methane, nitric oxide, carbon dioxide. In the US, the great source of these emissions is milk production, including feed production, enteric fermentation, and manure management. Yes, WWF or WW fuck you. I'm in extreme distress at how shit your opinion is. Exactly. I am. Yes. Nothing like crap from the veg-tarded brigade, because that's what they are. Let's be honest. The veg-tarded brigade have infiltrated academia, infiltrated these international organizations, and just are peddling their garbage, and have been for some time. They're the best friends of Big Pharma and the food industry. Yes. Yes. That's my term, basically. That's as Frankie would say, that is a violation of copyright. Yes. My mum was a difficult woman in some regards, but she was I had the same, other people, but yeah, I had a different opinion of her. Yes, I know the feeling. Yeah, look, we're all, that's why we're here, because we've either been damaged or our loved ones have been damaged, and we've sort of gone, okay, what's wrong with this message that we're being continually pushed? Ease. Yeah, you got to be careful that you may have been over fasting, and sometimes you can end up really affecting your thyroid, affecting your basically also you could say your metabolic rate and stuff like that. Sometimes it's good to basically come back and actually try and actually build up your metabolic rate before you start going back into venturing, which may mean that sometimes you put on a bit of weight until you can basically get it to a certain level. Then you can actually manage it better. Yeah, it's not an easy path, unfortunately, I know. I need to do something in regards to that. I find that carnivore doesn't do much good to break the lowest average weight a person has had for a long time, like a decade. Fed body doesn't seem to want to go lower. Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's very much saying earlier that you need to stoke it. You need to stoke your metabolism with, so pushing it up with more food and then cutting off. I mean, I know that one person had really good results by eating just about like, let's say your caloric requirement was this, eating just slightly above the caloric requirement for that day, the next day fasting, the next day eating, the next day fasting, next day feed, stuff like that, where they had really good results. Sometimes it's a way of breaking out of a plateau. So different people have tried different strategies and seem to, because I don't know genetics, what exactly there is, gut issues or whatever, what are the reasons that are actually affecting some of this sort of relationship. It can be complicated sometimes to really narrow down. It depends. Sometimes you have to really go and do a proper consultancy and go through all the different steps and work out what the state is. But ultimately, look, what I'm trying to do is trying to get these little bits of wisdom out there and procedures, and where people can then go away, fix their gut, fix this, fix their gallbladder, fix all this, fix their stomach. And that's what all these videos are going to be eventually for, these little biohacks, a bit like the one that I did for the vegans, but these sort of things. And people will be able to apply them and get back to some normality, and then the body will it'll function better and respond better. Ultimately, I think sometimes it's not that the foods that they're eating, but sometimes their body's still dysregulated to some extent. It hasn't really normalized. So, and I usually find that the basis of that is micronutrient deficiencies. Fundamental at the fundamental basis of everything is micronutrient deficiencies. I mean, you guys have seen the trace minerals that I use, that I occasionally put into water and consume. That's again to cover any potential deficiencies in trace minerals. So I think it's really important to focus on some of that sort of stuff. The foundation should always be the whole reason why you're eating. What is it? To get vitamins and minerals in, and a certain level of protein and a certain level of energy. That's really what the body wants to function. So really fundamentally, it's important to look at the foods you're eating. As I've said, if it's steak only and it's excessively steak, you probably may be missing out on other trace minerals, copper and many other things, and things may not be. You really have to look at a number of these sort of things. Now, there is some stuff there that basically some bodies can manage better. So even if you're not having as much copper, you can still extract it and the metalloproteins will actually prioritize that and less absorb zinc and sort of balance this. Some stuff that does slightly happen. The body can manage some of that sort of stuff, but if it's dysregulated, so if you're fine, it may not be a problem, but if you've got some level of dysregulation in your gut and all that, then some of these processes, normal processes, are not going to work properly. And that's what I'm saying, that it may not be necessarily, where somebody can actually just do a steak only and they can be fine. I mean, we know a number of them in our community that, do it for it, not a problem. But then a lot of us have got a lot of issues, because of malabsorption, or, the guts are not working properly, or a whole lot of things that are creating some sort of living imbalance and malabsorption, or things are not coming in properly and all that. And sometimes if you've got malabsorption as well, your metabolic rate may come down, and your T basically 3 may go, reverse T3 may go up. Why? Because it's a protective mechanism. So you may have to look at this sort of thing to say, well, and that may give away that you've got a malabsorption issue. So, and then come back to basically, how do I fix, my gut? Well, I need to use the Reuteri to bring down the pathogenic bacteria, then use the B's and the D to basically fix that, So that will be shortly in videos and explaining some of this sort of stuff, how to manage that transition and fix the gut microbiome. If you basically need somebody to assist you with gut microbiome restoration, because, I do not do consultancies, you may have to look at somebody like Mary. She's pretty good at doing that sort of stuff. And she basically more or less employs a similar protocol that I do. Because when I first mentioned some of this stuff about B vitamins and all that, and how to manage that sort of stuff, she said, oh, that's what I do. And I go, oh, interesting. So we're on the same page, so to speak. So I would say she'd be a good source to help people with sort of microbiome restoration, so to speak. So that could be a thing where your body sort of because it's so damaged, it's being protective and sort of holding on everything right. You may be doing everything right, but there may be underlying issues you never corrected. And that's why the body is behaving the way it is behaving. It knows what it's doing, it's protecting you. But, your body composition may not be exactly what you want because your body's protecting you. I would trust your body before your own false, cultural type of view of what your body should look like at this stage. Where it's at that stage is because your body wants it to be there, and you have to correct a number of things for your body then to be able to allow it to go to that other state. So just to sort of explain that, because sometimes I sort of fly over those sort of things. So, thanks Fappers for the actual putting this comment up, because it actually allowed me to bring that into the conversation, which I probably wouldn't have otherwise. Anyway, you're welcome. Yep. Thank you from me as well. And I've lost my spot. Thank you, StreamYard. Where am I? There I am. Never been skinny, always weight at all times. Yep. You probably have certain gut issues. And I suspect that's the reason you had a lot of malabsorption. You were diarrhea for a very long period of time. You would have had a lot of malabsorption issues, gut issues. And what the Reuteri did was clear out some of those pathogenics. But it hasn't restored your gut microbiome, Kitty. All it's done is it's eliminated some of the pathogenics that were causing a lot of the gut malabsorption and those sort of issues, but you still need to restore your gut microbiome in that regard. So, the easiest way is when I do the video, which is a B complex 50. 50 milligrams for all the sort of things. It's there's only a couple of brands that are specific to that, and you take them for 3 months. Plus, you keep on taking the Ruteri, which keeps under control the pathogenics, so the bacteroides and all that can regrow, because you need them to regrow, the beneficial ones. And once you've got that sort of restoration, it will take a bit of time to heal. Things like I think really important for you would be bone broths, and if you can't be bothered, there are commercial bone broths out there that are good quality stuff. Buy them and use them, to basically help heal your gut. Also, I would combine in those bone broths as you warm them. Remember the technique my younger sister does, where she actually will basically beat an egg, and then we'll put a bit of warm water from the bone broth into the egg in order to bring it at the same room temperature, and then combine it and cook it in, and it becomes like a soup type thing. And that additional material from the eggs is really good for healing the gut. A lot of the actual, in the white parts in particular, the proteins there are really good for the actual collagen. So that's why eggs are, a friend of mine asked me yesterday, Sean asked me, we were walking and said, if you're on an island and you had only one food that you could only pick, you had salt, obviously, because you need salt, but only one food, what would it be? And I said, eggs, the most bioavailable protein, 100%. Even beef is only 92%, And the only other thing that comes just close is dairy, and the only reason for that is because of the whey and the sort of anabolic effect of whey. But as a food, which is 100% in terms of protein bioavailability, it's eggs. So, and let alone it's got so much nutrients. It's got the essential fatty acids. It's got all the different vitamins and minerals in there. So and if you take them in large amounts, you'll probably get more than enough. Like that guy that was doing 25 eggs a day. So if there was one food that I would actually pick, would be eggs. Would be steak. It would be eggs. Yeah. Yep. My sibling got breast cancer for Monty, but I so happy I could advise her on supplements with also Harry's help. She's doing fine. No side effects. Good. Just keep me up to date on her progress, and we may need to do some adjustments. There's some additional information that I'm going to send you through. I've had a bit of a break this week. I'm just taking a break from everyone, but I'll send you some additional. We wanted to cover the first parts just to stabilize her, and then we're going to basically then go to stage 2, which is going to be in a future video, but I'll give you the information beforehand in terms of basically being able to improve the mitochondrial situation as well, for her to improve and turn off the cancer genes completely, downregulate the oncogenes. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, fuck. Why are you doing that? Yes, it can be. But, what we've identified is that the L. reuteri, she's definitely got some pathogenic bacteria still there. Your gut microbiome is slightly helped by a carnivore diet, but it won't eliminate the pathogenic bacteria or an unbalanced microbiome. It takes some time to restore through some biohacks. So the good thing about animal foods is they're very high in B vitamins, but the quantities are too low. So it can take years. So that's why the whole purpose of the B vitamins is that you want to bring back those bacteria that produce them. See, you're not supposed to get all your B vitamins from your food. You get some from food, and a large proportion of them from your bacteria, the beneficial ones, which we've been decimating with glyphosate and with antibiotics. So we need to bring them back to basically be producing the B vitamins that we need. But once you basically restore them, you need to take away all the B vitamin supplements, because then you can overload. And if you get too much, especially pantothenic acid, it can basically create insomnia issues. It can create all sorts of issues where you can't sleep, or you've got anxiety and all this sort of stuff. It can really just mess you up. So people don't realize pantothenic acid is like a double-edged sword in that regard, which is B5. Anyway, move on. Yes. Yes. Yes, the chores of life. It's a long time, 27 days, you know. I think it can have, if you've got if you're going into a long-term fast with malabsorption issues, it can actually bring down the thyroid even more, and it can basically put you in even a much lower type of metabolic rate. You know, like the Biggest Losers, people like that are really, you know, calorie restricting and doing a lot of activity, and they brought them down. They actually got fatter after. So you can rebound poorly, even on a clean, relatively diet, because of the high nutrients that your body can't process as fast. So keep that in mind, that, you know, fasting isn't the panacea. And you know, yes, it does. It can help, but if you've got underlying conditions, things that, you know, that are not working properly on, I don't know what your nutrient status is, what your past diet was. I know that that a lot of, like, the guy that actually that long-term fast 300 and whatever days, he was actually getting a whole lot of, managed by doctors, and getting a whole lot of micronutrients in there, so trace minerals. So if you're going to be doing fasting, you don't want the anabolic effects, and the fat soluble vitamins are stored in your, you know, in your fat cells. So you don't really have to worry about that. B vitamins aren't going to spike your insulin, aren't going to have a negative effect. So you can take B vitamins because they're water-based, and you can also take trace minerals. So that's what I would do, just for Kitty. So trace minerals while you're doing these fasts, trace minerals, and basically B vitamins in that regard. So the sort of stuff you really need to support yourself. Fat soluble vitamins you'll be releasing from your adipose tissue. You've got plenty stored. It's usually when I say, when people are losing weight, I say, well, cut back on the fat soluble vitamin intake, because you don't need it. It's the other reason, again, to cut back on the fat intake, because you don't need as much, because your body is going to release from the fat stores. It's going to release a lot of the fat soluble vitamins, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin A. You know, MK4 could be an issue. It depends, because if you've had a poor MK4 take up in the past, which most of us had, is probably the only thing I would consider supplementing out of the fat soluble vitamins, nothing else. Anyway, hope that made sense. If not, shoot me an email. I won't be responding to anyone's emails until Wednesday next week. I'm taking a break until then. So this is an impromptu live stream. So just keep that in mind. So if you do send me an email, you won't get a response until Wednesday or Thursday. Yep. Exactly. If you've got plenty of damage, it can take some time. It's, what the hell are you doing against StreamYard? Oh, God. Hidden current comment. Fuck's sake. Oh, God almighty. It's like pulling teeth out with StreamYard sometimes. Where am I? I've lost my place. Got no idea where I'm at. Ah, fuck. Okay, long road to health again. Okay, takes time. Decades, body healing. Yep. Minute. My productivity at work compromised. Minute. More comments. Has been summoned. G'day, bigots. G'day, Jaffa. Good to see you, mate. Yeah, you're in the hidden part, so I can't actually put you on screen, unfortunately. I'm trying to find the next one down below where I get available again. Fuck that, Anyway, if I've missed anyone, put it back in. Yes. Yes. Nothing like a sauna. Turkey wings are pretty nice too. Yes, nothing like a bit of edginess to our diet. Yes, yeah, he does the sauna thing. Citrulline, alpha lipoic selenium, and then iodine after. So he's taking the Cerule capsules as well. Advised lymph baths, and Elliot advised Epsom salts, charcoal for detox. Yep. Activated charcoal's pretty good, in that regard. Epsom salt's really good for relaxing. The skin part, which is the biggest organ in our body, our skin. Yes. Look, actually, daily grounding out in the sun. You got grounding, which is really good, which lowers blood pressure. You've got basically the taurine, which is good, which also does that. The sun, vitamin D actually lowers blood pressure. Yeah, most people don't realize. Another reason for high blood pressure is low vitamin D. Yep. So you're basically putting, yes, these are all the reasons. As I said, when you're eating a species appropriate diet, your body starts normalizing, unless you've got some underlying damage, which can take some time and needs to be, you need to go through a number of steps to fix the damage and then get back to normality, where the diet, you only need the diet, nothing else. And the only other time you need to see a doctor is when you injure yourself and you need some surgeon to stitch you up again, but otherwise you don't need to see a doctor, more or less. But yes. What's your steak raw? Yes. I basically consume both cooked and raw. Certain things raw, certain things cooked. It depends. Beef tartare, I love raw. cured meats. I love raw. I don't like any cooked cured meats. They have to be raw, because sometimes, some of the commercial stuff is cooked, which is crap. It's not really cured. I'm not really big in beef jerky. I don't mind it now and then, but it's not the big thing. I prefer, salted, cured meats with a lot of fattiness in them. That's the thing that I like. And the other thing that I do like is my steaks. Most of the time, if I'm cooking it, I prefer it medium rare. Occasionally I'll have a blue or rare, but majority of times I prefer it that it's basically like half of it inside is more or less nearly uncooked, and the other half, and we're talking about thick steaks. We had steaks like this yesterday, that exactly. So the red part was only basically this middle part. So the top part and bottom part were cooked, but the middle part wasn't, or got very little. That combination I really like the half cooked, half. You can't do it with a thin steak. You have to buy thick steaks like that. You have to go to a butcher. So I've got the the West Hobart butcher, where I get also my traditionally made sausages, because he actually does the traditional way, where they uses the intestine to fill up all the meats and all that with plenty of fat and some nice herbs and spices. They are beautiful, So even a lady that I know, my Chinese friend, she hates sausages and all that. She tried these once and went, wow, these are nice. She said, next time you buy some, can you buy me some? And I'll reimburse you. So, she was a non-sausage lover until she actually had traditionally made sausages for the first time, and realized, what am I missing? So basically, that's the sort of stuff that I prefer. That's why I like going to a butcher, because you can actually get them to say, I want it that thick, and they'll give it to you that thick, and then you can just barbecue it on both sides for about 7-8 minutes, so you get really nice and crispy, and the middle part doesn't really get cooked that much. And so, but it has to be thick like that. If it's thin like that, forget it. 2 minutes and 2 minutes is all you can do for that. But when you're basically thick like that, you need about 7 to 8 minutes on both sides to basically, depending on how much you want it cooked inside as well. So yes, those were beautiful steaks yesterday. I actually thought initially, because it was quite big, and my mate said, "You're going to eat all that?" I said, "Oh, I'll try." And then I did get through it, but because I had all the steak, which was a good thing to do, I had very little ice cream. I only had out of the whole amount, I probably only had about 20% of it. 80% was left over. And I said, well, just put it in the fridge for next week. He said, if it's there, I said, he'll probably leave it there because it's vanilla, and he doesn't like vanilla. He likes the chocolate one. So, anyway. But it's not bad. It's sort of a low sugar version. It's a low sugar vanilla and low sugar chocolate one that we get. A bit more pricey, but it's got less sugar. And I think when I eat more, I end up eating, and it's only one day a week when I abuse my body in that regard. But I know, look, in the middle of the year, when it gets into the wintry period, I'm going to push myself back into ketosis, into deep ketosis, and try and lose a couple of kilos of weight that I've got. I've got about 8 or 9 kilos that I need to lose. And once I do that, then I'll be able to see my abs again for a very long time. It'll be interesting to see my abs again. I'll be back to my 20s. That would be awesome, actually. So I'm looking forward to, by the end of the year, to basically be in that sort of condition, which is my goal. Yeah, but I'll basically just probably increase my weightlifting as well through that period, and to just maintain the muscle mass, and the body will just recycle more of that tissue quicker when you do that. So when you're lifting weights and you cut back protein, for women usually 15%, for men down to 20, from the 30 odd that I am now down to back to 20. and just basically lifting weights and doing much more physical work, at the same time cutting back on the fat slightly and getting the body to basically start using more of its own material to maintain and build, so, and lean out. So yes, I want to see my abs again. Haven't seen them for years. Anyway, move on. Shut up, Harry. Stop being an idiot. Anyway, yes, it does. It does. That's true. It's the reason why Harry has his taurine supplement. Say no more. Anyway, move on. Yeah, but you're still basically from the other essential amino acids, glycine, methionine, you can still produce endogenously, but it does go down. And as I'm in my mid-50s, it probably has declined by about a third, or so definitely need the supplement. It's good to have friends. Get to bed. Yeah, look, some steaks, it depends which part of the animal is, and that's true. That's true. Some parts of the animal, you can, having it actually rare, I really like it, but it has to be like, a much softer, that means a much softer meat. So it depends on the type of, some of it has more sort of connective tissue. That has to be a bit, if you undercook it, you're really just cutting into connective tissue. It is a fucking hassle, so it depends on that portion, which part. The top parts, those top parts which have got less connective tissue, that's fine. You can undercook those, they're fine. But other ones were around the legs and those sort of areas that have got under the belly as well, it's much softer. But around the legs, where those muscle groups which need to have more of this fibrotic type, connective tissue that actually holds those muscles together to work together, that meat tends to be harder. So you got to cook it a bit more. I like the way my father does, like especially like roasts of those parts of the body. He'll basically he'll boil them into water, so they take a lot of moisture in and they soften, and then he'll do the roast. And so you don't really have to put a lot of water, because the actual roast has got a lot of water. So when you're actually doing a roast, you don't have to put a lot of liquids in there, because it's already taken a lot of liquids. You use the actual liquids as they reduce in the boiling. You just tip the whole lot in. You don't put any new water. You just tip the whole lot, because you want to not lose any of the micronutrients, the minerals and stuff like that in the food. He puts his veggies and other stuff like that, which will absorb some of those minerals, so they end up being more nutritious in that regard. But that's the sort of stuff that approach you can sort of do in that regard. So yeah, depends on, as you said, depends on the part of the body of the animal. Yes, definitely. And sometimes, another point, some people are living in a foodie, don't have the same financial, especially in these times. And so those parts which tend to be cheaper as well. So using that method can soften and actually still provide you with some really nice succulent meat. Yeah, so. Yeah, it is. It is actually. It is. So I'm just going to absolutely run that through as well. he's got another 30 minutes. Unfortunately, I don't. Thanks, Lukey, for reminding me, because there's only so much StreamYard gives me, and that would affect the program later in. So I'm just going to run through these, and the only reason I run through these is because, unfortunately, with YouTube, they absolutely fuck me over in some cases with the live chats are not enabled and stuff like that. Have you ever talked about loose skin, Dr. Berry, blah, blah, about fasting, 100% eating? Yep, I have talked about it. I believe without proof that it's protein storage and body will use. I've talked about how it does help, and also getting the fat-soluble vitamins that regulate the collagen that basically also help tighten it up. Remember, retinol, MK4, and also another thing that helps tighten is also basically niacin, something that he probably didn't talk about, but most people are not aware of the effects of healing collagen within the skin from niacin. It's just one of those esoteric things that people aren't aware of. I talk about the fat-soluble vitamins and how they regulate collagen, but niacin also plays a role. So it's just one of those things that most people aren't aware of. Yeah, because if she was basically had a lot of good stored fat-soluble vitamins and stuff like that, yeah, probably helped a lot. It really depends with a lot of people, the way they do it and all that. So I don't know what else she was doing. Was she exercising? Was she doing other things? Where if you're doing exercising as well, it seems to help as well, because what it does is it will take that tissue and actually put it into building muscle. So you will lose a lot. It's what the bodybuilders do. They do a lot. They cut, and they basically do a lot of, they're still pumping quite a bit to take that tissue and actually incorporate it in that pumping, in that, the muscle that they built, the additional muscle that they're maintaining and building. So there's, I don't know what Kelly was doing. So I think she was doing some exercise as well. So that helps as well. If you're basically just eating carnivore diet and losing weight and doing no exercise, you could end up with more loose skin. That's another factor. So there's a lot of, it's nuanced. Let's put it that way. Anyway, and I probably won't make it to the bottom. And yes, the old Japanese lady. That's true. The old Japanese ladies stuff. So I'm waiting for my stuff to appear. I'm racing through this stuff. If you can read it fast enough, you may have to, after, pause it. Goes, fuck, Harry. That's the only way to get to the bottom. You know how it goes. It's. I remember to tell you in advance that I want to join as a co-host. Okay. Oh, next time we'll have you on. Why not? And Loki, it doesn't matter, it's like Jared, he sometimes came on, sometimes came off, up to you. When I'll do is I'll just send you a link through, email you a link. And if you want to come on, you come on. You don't want to, the day's inappropriate, we're having, just don't feel like it or whatever. It's up to you. Ano recommends fasting beyond 72. Anyway, as found it killed his client's metabolism even with exercise. Yes. Yeah, too excessive is Actually, even the research has shown that once you get over 72 hours, your metabolic rate continues going up and up and up to 72 hours, and then starts plateauing off. It doesn't go completely down, but it does start drifting slowly. If you do it longer and longer and longer, it starts coming down because of the thyroid effect and the higher reverse T3. So yes, so you don't want to do that chronically. That's why I don't do any long-term fasts anymore myself. And if I was going to do it, I'd be upping the micronutrients quite a bit. And you really have to get the micronutrients up there because your body still, one, B vitamins it's not going to get. You're not going to get B vitamins, and you still need B vitamins because they only store for so long, for so many days, in sufficient amounts. And if you don't have a good gut microbiome to maintain those things or produce them when you're fasting, again, which may be more than likely Kitty's situation, that's a problem, So it's all these sort of things. Yep. Thank you to you as well. Okay. We'll give the eggs a miss, just do the bone broth. Or basically you can even do like meat soup, some type of meat soup as well, combining that and mixing it, like meat soup, half bone broth, or a third bone broth, 2/3 meat soup. And sometimes people tolerate that much better. Some people just have a, like glycine. There is actual genetics. There is a genetics where the glycine, I can't remember which gene it is. Anyway, but it just some people do better with slightly less than slightly more. Anyway. So in that regard, since you're not going to be getting some of the minerals that you need, you'll have to get a colloidal mineral. You'll have to get a mineral supplement in ionic form. That has to be ionic. Your metalloproteins can't bind to it properly if it's not in ionic form. Remember, like the King Island one that I talk about, that's, you need an ionic form, something similar to that, for good binding of minerals. Yep. And we go on. Shit. It can be basically some of the proteins in there that can actually cause it chill in some people. There can be some genetics. Genetics. There is an association with some genetics, but it's not strong association. A lot of people say it's genetics, but there's poor association. I don't know. It's really hard, hit and miss. We still don't have good information. There are outliers, but a lot of that, those so-called genetics are still, there's no, the science is shit, basically, in that debate, because it doesn't make money to find out what causes an allergy. Sometimes the allergies also are due to your gut system, and there are certain bacterial strains that can actually prevent some of these allergies. Dealing with it can be also histamine, and there are certain types of allergies are not caused because you've got gut problems. You don't have those gut those beneficial bacteria to break down the histamine, and that's the other thing. Also, taurine helps as well in this. I'm not going to give too much away, but I can tell you taurine helps. I'm not going to explain it because I don't want to give anything away on this one. It's one of those really esoteric ones. It's going to be mine. First time revealed by Harry at some point in the future. But yeah, take taurine as well. Really helps as well in that department. Yep. Don't think so. And I'm flying through the... Am I going fast enough? I don't know. Cover the egg thing. Ad nauseum. Good to see. Anyway, guys, I'm going to give up. I'm clicking. Okay. I'm going to go right to the bottom. What's Flapper saying? Beef heart, $2 for £5. Sounds good to me. Anyway, guys, it's 16 minutes past. I better fucking get off there before I eat too much into my time, and then I won't have enough time for my other streams in the following weeks. Thanks, guys, for being here. Take care, and I will see you guys this coming week. Potentially, I may do probably on Thursday, Wednesday, or whatever. There may be some stuff that I may decide to basically do a premiere of, which means that I can interact with you guys. We'll see. Yeah, probably Thursday, but we'll see. It won't be in the morning because I'll be back at work next week. I'll go back on Tuesday, so they'll keep me busy for a couple of days to try and catch up because I know everything's going to be, Harry's not here, so we'll have a bit of extra work for Harry. Fuck you. Anyway, so be it. There are people away, unfortunately, on holidays, and it will mean that even though I go back, there are some people still on further until about February, which basically means that yes, there'll be plenty of shit to do. Yes. There's a couple of mad hatters in this crowd. Believe me. Yes. Psycho Cat, good to see you here. Anyway, your bus? You're on a bus. Good. Hope you're going in the right direction. Anyway, see you all. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye.